Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 4. We're going to be looking at working with layers, and we're going to do several things with layers. And I've got my images open right here. I've got 6 images that I want to use for this particular assignment. If you don't have this week's images available to you, you might want to go ahead and download those right now and push pause on here in the meantime. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I can just go from the first one and go down to the last one, holding down Shift key and click again, and it'll select all 6. Hopefully you'll, if you want to work on these, you'll download the images as shown in a prior video and put those on your desktop so it'll be easy for you to find those using Bridge. And of course you can go into Photoshop and open them one at a time if you want, but I like just doing this. Plus it lets me see a preview. If I just click on one image, for example, we get a pretty good sized preview. A lot of your computers may, when you open Bridge, may look like this, or it may be even more cramped and crowded. If you really want to be able to see those things, these are all little columns that you can adjust. And I've set one up here for myself, and I like this better for viewing my images. If I click inside there, I can magnify and look at these in great detail. And you notice there's a lot of JPEG artifacts because this one's really been, the file's been changed quite a bit. So let's open up all of these. I'm going to click on the first one. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and click on the last one, and now they're all selected. So I can just double click right on any one of the images and they all open up in Photoshop like they're supposed to. There's even, you see the list here, and we've got all 6 images. Now the background layer is where we want to start, so I need to click on it, and it's basically Florida shoreline back out into the water. We've got some people wading in the surf and so forth, and the sky is very, very humdrum, so we want to fix that up for one thing. We're also going to bring in some other elements to spice this image up a little bit. But this sky is the first thing that I want to tackle. We also have one, this is called Crab Orchard. This is just a local lake that's photographed, and I'm going to rob the sky out of here. That's what I'm going to do. So here's the first step. We're just going to let that sky fall right in here into this particular space. And so what I'm going to do is click and drag, and there's basically the area that I want to fill. Now the only problem with that is that it's 0 feather. That means that the sky would come in with a very hard line right here. So let's just change that to, let's say, 5. And now click and drag, and we'll just let go. This is going to be a very important selection. Remember, these are called marching ants. It indicates that this area is selected. So I'm going to go back over here to the Crab Orchard image, and I'm going to click and drag a selection without the trees in it, just above the tree line. And all I'm going to do is a Control C. Control C is in C for copy. And I'm going to go back to the background layer again. Instead of just doing a paste, I'm going to go to Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into. And you notice it drops that in to that selected area. Now, this image is bigger than the image that we just got it from. So what we're going to have to do is transform it a little bit, right? So all we have to do is hold down the Control key, Command key on a Mac, press the letter T as in Tango, and that turns into a transformation. So I'm just going to drag the tops over, Now I want to make this sky look like it's going back even further. So I'm going to hold down my control key and I'm going to just jerk that line out a little bit. And we can bring this top down a little, scooch that up a little bit more. We can do all kinds of, didn't want that. We can do all kinds of transformations. Sometimes it makes things look a little better, sometimes it doesn't help at all. When we're done, when we're satisfied, we just double click or hit the return key, and now we have a new sky in this image. So we turn the eyeball off, and you see how it looks. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Notice that this created a new layer in the layers palette. This is the layer tab you see right here. It's basically its own panel, and we can put it wherever we want to, but because we did a paste into, it created a mask of the area also. With this mask, and we're going to look at masking a little bit more as this chapter goes along, but as we use these masks, let me just show you real quick. I'm going to paint, and I've got black and white as the color down here, and I'm going to use this brush, and I'm going to make the brush bigger. Let's go up here and we'll just drag that, and then we'll click on the title bar. You'll see there's the brush size. Let's make it bigger yet. What I'm doing is tapping the right bracket key. Right and left bracket keys are located up by the P on the keyboard, the letter P, and the right bracket makes your brush bigger, left bracket makes your brush smaller. So right now if I paint with black, what it's doing is, you see over here on the layers palette, let me just make that bigger so you can see how that looks. We're painting right here. That's what we just did. So if I paint some more, you see that black is right there. If I switch the color to white over here, just click, or you can press the letter X back and forth. If I paint with that, notice it brings the sky back. So we didn't erase anything at all. Look at that now. So I actually went further than the original mask showed us. But if I press with the X key again to put black on top and I paint, what it's doing is painting this black circle, which basically means it's punching a hole through this so you see the layer below. So we're just looking through this spot into this layer. Okay, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit more. I'm going to paint with white again to make that go away. All right, and I can paint right across there. Let's undo that, Control Z. I'm going to paint with white across there. And notice we've got our line across there. It's not a big deal. As long as it looks like it's matching pretty good, that's all we care about right now. All right, let's move the layers panel back down here. And I'm going to switch these. So here you see the two layers that we have. We're soon going to have more layers. What I want to do right now is open another image. But before I do that, I want to kind of make this sky fit more with the image. It's a nice blue sky and all that, but let's try to make it match up with the colors in the image, the background image. If I turn that eyeball off, there's the original background image, and we put that in. The sky is quite blue, but the water is quite green. So let's just see. Let's go up here in the panel adjustments, adjustment panels. Right here is the hue and saturation panel. So we can take and move this around to get different looks. We can really run the saturation up, and we can run the lightness and darkness up. But if you notice, as I do this, everything in the picture is changing, not just the sky. Well, to get it to just change the sky, and that's what I want to do, just change the sky, right here. This is called a clipping adjustment. It'll basically make the adjustment only affect the layer that's below it. So if we click that, notice how that's offset now. Let's undo that. Right now is the adjustment layer. If I click that, it moves it over one. So now when I change the light, it's only affecting this layer that's directly under. Let's move that back out because you're not going to be able to see all the layers. So it affects this layer and not this layer. So we can kind of tweak the sky a little bit, and that's probably a little closer to matching up with what's in the image. Okay? Not a big deal. And you are the one working on this assignment. You're the one learning. You're the one digging into these new tools. So you change it to look the way you think it looks best. That's the main thing. So if I click these little arrows, that goes away. And now in the layers palette, you see the 3 layers that we have. If I turn that on, okay, you see the difference in them. All right, let's go over here and bring in, move that down a little bit. Let's just put the panel right there for now. Click on these arrows, and we want to get a pineapple. Now the pineapple is going to be a lot bigger than it was on the other image. The size of this is bigger than the other image, so we're going to have to transform it. But right now, this thing sits on this layer. This is here's the image way over here that we've been working on. Now we're working on a pineapple image. There's only one layer. And what we want to do is knock this pineapple out, so to speak. We don't want it. If we bring this over now, let me show you what happens. I'm going to do a control. Actually, we can go to edit. And let's do a control A to select everything. And then we can go to edit, copy. We can go back to our background image where this is, and we can do an edit, paste. Notice there's also shortcut keys, which I prefer. Control V will paste it. Well, look how big it is. And not only is it big, it's covering everything over because of the white that came with it. So let's Control Z, as in zebra, and undo that. Let's go back over to the pineapple again. So what we want to do is get rid of, I'm going to do a Control D, as in dog, to turn off those marching ants. I got to get rid of all that white. So what I do is double click the background and click OK, because here's the deal. See this little padlock? Basically, we can't move this pineapple anywhere. Once we get additional layers, it still stays there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to click on the new layer icon down here, and I cannot move that layer underneath the pineapple. This is a protected layer. If I double click on it, I can give it a new name, or I can just leave that layer 0 there and click OK. Now notice the padlock is gone. I can now drag this layer underneath and let go. Well, what I have to do now is knock the white out here, and we should just see checkerboard around the pineapple if we do it right. This checkerboard basically denotes transparency, and that's what we want. We want everything around the pineapple. We just want the pineapple. We don't want any of the white around it. So one of the easiest tools to use on something like this, if there's a lot of contrast, and obviously there's tons of contrast here, is the magic wand tool. This quick selection tool is great, but you have to keep selecting, went too far. Got to Alt click and go over this, and if you get, you start getting down those leaves, it gets pretty messy. So I'm going to do a Control D to select all that stuff, and now we're going to click on the Magic Wand tool. So all we have to do, it's based on the tolerance, how selective it is, and I'm just going to, if yours says 35, go ahead and switch it to 50. It's not going to hurt anything, and just click once in the white, and it should select everything except the pineapple. You don't want to click on the pineapple, because if you try selecting it with a magic wand, it's a nightmare. But the white is constant. There's no shades of gray in it. It's just white. So it finds all the white very quickly. And now all we have to do is hit the backspace, and all the background goes away, except for, notice right in there, if I magnify this and I'm holding down the Control key, holding down the space bar, and clicking, that would be Command space bar on a Mac. And now I click with the magic wand in those two white spots. Again, I hit the backspace key, and it eliminates the white. So we've got a great selection now. Let's just do a Control D to turn all the marching ants off. Now we want to select this whole thing. So I'm going to do a Control or Command A, go back to my background layer, and do either an Edit Paste or Control V. Let's do Control V as in victory. V as in victory. And there it is. Unfortunately, did a couple of things wrong. It's still huge, but we still have the white. So let's go undo that, Control Z, and go back to the pineapple. And it shouldn't still have the white. What we can do is hold down the Control or Command key on a Mac, click right on that layer. That loads that as a selection. And now we can do an Edit, Copy, go back to the background layer, and do an Edit, Paste. And now we just have the pineapple. Look how good the selection is. Now, it's huge. So what I'm going to do is hold down the Control key and press minus several times. That's Command minus on a Mac to make it really small. And now I'm going to do a Control T, and T is in Tango. That'd be Command T on a Mac. That brings up the transform. So now I'm just going to grab that bottom, hold down the Shift key, grab that bottom right side, and just bring that up. Now we'll make the whole image bigger. Control 0. 0. The number 0. Don't press the letter O. 0. Now you see the whole pineapple, and we can click and drag it wherever we want. And I want to bring it down a little bit, and I want to spread it out. So hold down the Shift key. I want to make this thing bigger. I'm actually going to exaggerate side to side a little bit. And then all we have to do is either hit the Return key or Enter key, double click inside the bounding box, and the transform is complete. So now, look at our layers palette. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. Now you got to remember, whatever's on top, this we did a little bit of this with the selection in Chapter 3. Whatever's on top in the layers palette is on top in the image. If I move the pineapple down below these clouds, see, it's underneath those clouds up there. So whatever's on top is going to be on top. We're gonna in our image, it's going to be on top, that is. So we're going to bring some other things in. It looks to me like the pineapple is tilted to the right just a little bit. So let's do a Control T again, Command T on a Macintosh, and we'll just turn that, just move your mouse outside that bounding box and it turns into a double arrow, and it'll allow you to tilt that a little bit, and that looks a lot better that way, I think. Again, you're the artist doing this on your end, so you do it whatever way you want. Let's move on. Ultimate goal in this assignment is to create basically a postcard. So there's several things that we're going to bring in here, but we're also going to create a postage stamp scratch. Make it beginning to end on our own. And it's a little tricky, but it's kind of a nice, neat thing that we can do in Photoshop. But right now, let's click back up here on the double arrows, and let's go get the Fudge Factory. Now, these are images from down in Florida. So what I'm going to do now is a Control-A, Command-A on a Mac to select everything. So put some marching ants all the way around it. There's nothing else on this image as far as layers go. So let's do a Control-A, Control-C to copy it, or we could go to Edit, Copy, then go back to the background layer again, and here we do a Control or Command V as in victory. So there's the Fudge Factory. Turn on the Move tool or press the letter V, and we can kind of move it over here to the side a little bit. Now we're going to go over here and get Fudge Factory, Chapter 4, Fudge Factory. Actually, we just did that. I apologize. I need to go back in here and get the Sandpiper. That's the other one I needed. So this is a view from almost the shoreline back up into the Sandpiper beacon. And again, we're going to do a Control-A to select it all. And then we'll do a Control-C. That's Command-C on a Macintosh. Go back to the background layer, and we're going to do a Control-V as in victory. So now we have two images on top. Now you see the stacking order. If I move this shot of Sandpiper over the Fudge Factory, it's on top in the layers palette, so it's going to cover up what's underneath it. If I move the Fudge Factory on top of it, it shows. So whatever's on top is going to be on top in the image. Notice that the pineapple now is behind all three, or the other two items. I'm going to do Control-Z to line that back up. So let's move the Fudge Factory back over. We can have whichever one we want on whichever side. It doesn't make any difference. Let me show you a nice little trick. If I want to select the Fudge Factory without going over here into the layers, I'm going to just hold down my Control key and click on the Fudge Factory image. And notice it jumps right up there, lets me move it. I'm going to Control click on this, and now it lets me move it. Now this image is second under the Fudge Factory, so it can be covered up. And still it's on top of the pineapple. We can bring the pineapple up to the top, and it's over everything else. Let's move it back down. All right. Now we're going to make these look like little snapshots on top of a postcard. Now, with the rectangular marquee tool, I'm going to click right up here, and I want the selection around it to be the same all the way around. So if it's not exactly the same, hold down the space bar, and while you're holding down the mouse, and you can move that around. Just want a little bit of it. Then let go. Then the next step is you want to go up to the very corner of the picture and hold down the Alt key, click and drag. Now there's going to be a little bit of a problem because this is feathered by 5 and this should be 0. So let me start again. Go up here, click, drag that out, Watch, make sure I've got the same distance all the way around. Now I'm going to hold down the Alt key, click right on the edge of the picture, and let go. Now we have a bounding box around the whole thing. Got a little bit too much. I don't have it sized exactly right. I can see that now. Let me undo that. Try this again. When I tilted it back, I didn't get it exactly square. There. All right, now we're going to fill this with white. So over here on this image, this is the Fudge Factory image. I'm going to click on the new layer icon. Here's the new layer, and I'm going to call it white border. Okay, white is the color right down here in the color picker. So there's a keyboard shortcut to fill this with, and that would be to hold down the Control or Command key on a Mac and hit backspace. That fills it. The other way is to do an edit, fill, and then you can pick your color, black, white. So that's totally up to you. Edit, fill, and you tell it what color to fill it with. Okay. We've already got it filled. So Control D to turn off the marching ants, and now you see what we have. Okay. Now over here we've got just the border. So let's just, we don't need those two things to be separate anymore. Let's bring the white border down onto layer 3. And we do that with a Control E. E is an echo. Or we can go up to layer and down to merge down. Here you see the same thing, Control E. Merge down. So now here is the whole image. It's got its white border. Let's hold down the space bar, turns it into a grabber, and go over here to our good friend, the Sandpiper beacon. So we'll click on the Sandpiper's image. Let's straighten it back up. Hopefully I'll straighten it back up better than I did the other one. Right in there straight. So hopefully you will do this before you turn it cockeyed like I did. All right. It's one of those do as I say things, not as I do, I guess. All right, I'm going to click with my marquee tool right out here and drag out a selection. I want to bring that down a little bit, so I'm holding the space bar and then moving my marching ants around a little bit. Let go when I think I got it about right. Now, hold down the Alt key. The Alt key takes away from a selection. So we made the selection, now we're going to take away from it. So with the Alt key down, click and drag. And here we go again. We can actually just put this white border right on this image instead of creating a new layer, so we're going to do that this time. So we'll go to Edit, Fill, and foreground is black, so we don't want to fill it with foreground. We'll fill it with background. Click OK. And Control D or Command D on a Mac, and now we've got Sandpiper on its own layer. Let's zoom out. Control or Command minus. Control T. Now we're going to turn them. Go up here, double click on that, and Control T on this one. And I sometimes like to overlap these things to give them a little depth. It's up to you where you place them. I'm hitting the Enter key, or you can double click in the image to complete the transform. So that gives us a little vacation flare now that we've created these, these little snapshots inside the image. We need to add some other things. Let's go up here and get the flowers. So here are the flowers. Let's do we can go up here and do a select all or Control A. That's your call. Select all or Control A, Command A on a Mac, and then we can go to Edit, Copy, or Control C, Command C on a Mac. Go back to our background layer and do a Command or Control V as in victory. Or we could do paste. And I did it twice, so I'm going to get rid of one of those. So there's flowers in our image. I kind of like the idea of putting those flowers down here in that corner. They're a bit large, so I'm going to do a Control T to transform them. Hold down the Shift key and grab this left top corner, left top corner, and just put them in there about like that. Move it down just maybe a smidgen. Double click it. Does that look right? I mean, they're kind of pretty, right? But no. All that border stuff doesn't look good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a layer mask on. Remember, we did a layer mask over here on the sky. The mask lets this show through and hides any of the bottom. So we're going to do the same thing up here on this image. We're going to come down here and what looks like a square donut. Click it, and that creates a layer mask for us. So now what we need to do is really zoom into the image so we can see it very close. So we can zoom in up here and move over here. That's a little bit too close. And what I need to do is paint, because I only want the flowers to show, not all this other stuff. So what I'm going to do is paint with black. You see the black down here. If it's not already black, then you want to hit the letter D on your keyboard, and that puts in, let me just show you real quick. If this is red, and it won't be on there. If this is red and the other color is blue, how do I get to black and white quick and easy? Well, you just press the letter D as in dog, and those two colors will be black over white. All right, I want to paint in this mask. The only two colors to paint in a mask with are black and white. Black is going to reveal what's underneath, and white is going to hide what's underneath. So here's what I mean. If I paint with black, let's switch that to black, or press the letter X and it'll toggle. See what happens? Now we're seeing underneath the flowers. We're now seeing all the way back to the girls in the foreground, or the background image. So I made my brush smaller using the left bracket key, but now it's really fuzzy soft brush. If I get too close and do that, it's going to make part of the plant go away too, or the flower. So I don't want to do that. But guess what? I'm not erasing anything. I'm painting this mask. So all I have to do is switch the color over here in the color picker to white, and it comes back. And that's the beauty of masking. We can control how this thing is going to look. What I'm going to do with the brush tool selected, I'm going to click up here where the brush control panel is, and I'm going to make this fairly hard. The hardness is now at about 90%. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, left bracket key, and I'm going to just paint with black. And with that hardness, I can get in there a lot closer on these leaves. See how it's going there? You don't want to leave any shadows or traces around the edges to take away from it. See there, I went too far. Press X and paint that right back in. Press X, and I'm right back to covering again. I right bracket to make my brush bigger, and I can get rid of bigger swaths at a time. You got to make sure you don't go too far and erase the good stuff. Smaller brush, left bracket key. And you say, well, Steve, I want to do Photoshop, but this is taking a lot of time. Well, there's an old saying, if it was easy, anybody could do it. This is the reason why a lot of people don't use Photoshop. There are things that take a while to do a good job on. You don't want to go too far too fast. The key to doing this is to really enlarge things, and you make a lot better selections, or a lot better erasings, or masking. That's, then you make your brush a lot more petite. You don't want the purple fringing of the edges on there. And once you make those nice marks, then you can make your brush a little bit bigger and paint to get rid of more quicker. Then we can get a lot. And it is time consuming to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to do all this and record it. I'm going to turn the recording off and do a lot more of this, and then come back when I'm happy with where I am. Okay, I've got most of it cleaned up. There are a couple of things that don't look natural. For instance, if I zoom in here, how is this flower connected and this flower? So I need to bring a little bit back. So I'm going to switch to white over here and bring up a softer brush this time. I'm going to run the hardness all the way up, make my brush a little bit bigger, and just see what I've got right here. Don't want to bring all that back. Control Z, Control Alt Z, Control Alt Z. Let's see if we can't connect it with some green down here. Control Alt Z. Let's look and see how we can tie this back. Looks like I'm going to have to just leave it like that, and maybe a little patch right there showing some. And then over here, let's see if we can't. Yeah, let's do that. Control Z that, and we'll just paint some of that in right in here. Give it a little connection back. There we go. I'm going to slide that down just a little bit further. Click V for the move tool and just move those flowers down just a little bit. Now let's do a Command or Control 0, and now you see how the flowers look in the image. Okay, now we're going to make our own postal stamp to look like this has already gone through the mail. So I'm holding down the Control key, Command key on a Mac, the space bar, and clicking to enlarge this point right out in here. Holding down the space bar now to move it around, or again, we can control all this right up here if we need to. Alright, what I'm going to do is go up to the marquee tool, hold it down, because I want the elliptical marquee tool. I need a new layer to put this on, so I'm going to create a new layer down here. New layer icon is right here. And out here on my canvas, I'm going to hold down my shift key and drag a circle and just let go. Now, I'm going to go up to Edit and down to Stroke. And I'm going to just stroke that by, let's just say 3 pixels. And right in the center, click OK, and you see it made a nice round circle for us. Control D to turn that off. I think you see where we're going with this. Now let's see if that's big enough. Let me zoom out. It really could be a lot bigger. So other than transform this and make it look worse, let's just undo that and do it again. Shift key, click and drag. We'll make it about like that. Edit, stroke, by 3, center. OK, Control D or Command D on a Mac. And there we have that. And with the move tool down, we can move it wherever we want. The next thing is we need to make the wavy lines. So here's what we do. Right here where the paintbrush is also a pencil. So if I click and hold that down, there's the pencil. I need to make a pencil line, and I'm going to, for right now, I'm just going to put it on its own layer as well. This one has a circle. And a new layer, this one's going to have straight line. And I'm just going to click once here and once over here. Now I know that's not lined up. We'll do that in a minute. Okay, here's what I want to do. I'm going to turn off the pineapple, the 2 snapshot images, so we have this room to see. I'm going to click on the V tool or click up here on the move tool and just move that down to where we can work on it. Now, up in the filters, I'm going to click and go to liquefy. In liquefy, we want this top one, and what we're going to do is make the brush pretty big, and we're going to push this in, and we're going to just kind of work this a little bit to create a wavy line. Get it to where you like it, and then once you do, you'll click OK, and there's our line. A little longer than it needs to be, so I'm going to click on the eraser tool or press the letter E, make that a little bit bigger brush size here. Let's go up here and make that a bigger brush, and the opacity's turned way down. Let me undo that. Control Z, Control Alt Z to go back a little bit more, Command Option Z on a Mac, and let's change this opacity to where we can erase that. This isn't a perfect wavy line, but it'll do. It'll look like the postal cancel mark. So let's bring the circle down, turn the move tool on, put it right in there, and now what we're going to do is copy the straight line. So I can either click and drag the straight line down to the new layer icon, which creates a copy. There's an exact copy of it. Or I can do a Control J and Control J again, and now I have multiple lines. I think you probably have all seen this before. My circle, let's move my circle over here, and I can move these lines obviously closer together. Remember, if the snapshot, for example, was up here at the very top, it's over the top here. Just want you to remember, whatever's up here on top is what's going to show. All right, we're going to say the postal code is looking pretty good. Let's click on that little circle again, bring it over there. And what I'm going to do is, since this is supposed to be a Florida holiday, I'm going to put Florida and the month and year inside that circle. Well, you can't just click on, here's the text tool, you can't just click on the text tool and type inside that circle, and that's not going to work. That's just flat across, and it needs to be going around the circle. So what we need to do is type around a circle. So let me throw that away. Just hit backspace and make that go away. I'm going to take the circle and basically turn it into what's called a path. So to load this circle as a selection, we hold down the Control key and click right on this layer that the circle is on. That loads that as a circle. Now we go up to Window, Paths. Now you see I've got a couple of paths in here already, and I'm going to just trash them out of there. So now I'm going to click right here to have a new path, and click right here. This is really what we want. We want the work path. Let me get rid of that. Now when we move the mouse out here around that with the T down, notice it turns into a slanted line. Let me make this bigger. Control spacebar or Command spacebar clicking. See that turn into a little bit of a slant? So that means it's going to allow us to type on a circle. That's going to have to be a small font. So let's just try something like this. Florida. June 2011. Now let's move this spacebar kind of to run around to the different sides here. And we can make that text bigger. I can do a Control A or Command A on a Mac. And let's make this 10 points. And let's get rid of some of the, I'm just hitting the backspace to bring that in. Okay, so I'm going to turn off this path panel. I'll just move it out of the way, and I'm going to, we're on the text right here. If you look in the panel, in the layer panels, you see I've got the T for Florida selected. I'm going to do a Control T, hold that down, hit enter, and I moved the path. Let me get rid of the little work path here and do that again. And then move the Florida in. A little bit more space. We could have made it the font size a little bit bigger, couldn't we? Okay, double click, and now that's done. We can actually go back in here and change that font size again if we want. And click in here. Spacebar. Now then, click outside that. Let's do another little Control T to transform it. Just kind of make sure it's in there the way we want it. Double click, and now we're all set. So let's zoom out, Control 0 to see the whole thing. Now you see what this stamp looks like. We can make this go away, and I'm going to move the layers a little bit. Now Control 0, so we have more room. Some of these lines look a little longer and shorter than others, and I'm going to straighten that out real quick. Alright, they're not in bad shape. Now what I need to do, I'm going to make these smaller again so we can see everything that's here. Alright, we can almost see everything. We want to take the circle and all the lines and the text and make them on one layer. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to click on this top one, and I'm going to Control click on each one of those and the Florida, and I'm going to do a Control E, Command E on a Mac. E as in Echo, Control E. Now, I've got one straight line, one circle, so I'm just going to do a Control E again, and now it's all on one layer. We got rid of all those other layers. So now we can move the stamp wherever we want. And to make it look more like a faded stamp, we just change the opacity of it just a little bitty bit. Now let's bring back our pictures that are in here. And we certainly don't want the rubber stamp back there, do we? There it is, back there behind everything. If we put it on top, then it's all over the top of everything. And we can certainly make it bigger if we want to. We can place that rubber stamp wherever we want. If it's going to be over the image, we probably ought to make it a little bit bigger. We can also make the entire cancel stamp bigger. So we can do a Control T and just grab it like that and make it big. If we hold down the Control Z, that Command Z on a Mac, do a Control T, hold down the Shift key, and the perspective changes with it as it should. So then you got a giant cancel. And to make it look more like a real canceled one, you can use your eraser and kind of get a scroungy brush and make it bigger, and you can click in that a little bit, make it go away. What I usually like to do is, let me undo all those. I usually like to take the opacity down and do that. So now it makes it look more like a rubber stamp or a canceled stamp. And we can run the opacity up again a little bit. All right. Some people also like to sell the rubber stamp a little bit better by going to filter and blur and put a little Gaussian blur on it. You see what happens to it as we blur. So you can kind of play with that if you want to see if that's going to help sell the effect or not. I myself don't use that. We need some text. So let's click the Move tool. I want to bring down these images just a little bit more. So I'm going to click on this image and this image, and I'm going to undo that image by I can actually select one at a time. If I hold down the Control key, I can skip and do that. Turn on the margin, and then I can move those both at the same time because both photographs here are being selected, being moved at the same time. Now another way to help sell these postcards, make them look cool, bring some depth to the image, is to go to right down here on the image is called the special effects. Now, or FX, I call it special effects. I'm going to click on the layer, and what I'm doing, and let's see if I can move this up. I want to put a drop shadow in. So there you see the shadow. I like it shadow to come from over there. Provides just a little bit of depth, and I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to go up, click on this little down arrow, and I want to go down to where it says got to be right here on this, and right click on that little FX, copy layer style. And then I'm going to go to the other picture right here, right click, and go down to where it says paste layer style. And then it gets an identical drop shadow on it. So it brings some depth to the image. You can do the same thing with the pineapple if you think it needs it. Click on the pineapple layer, right click, paste layer style. Now there's a little shadow behind it. Not too much, and that's good. So now the text. Let's put some text into this thing. Go up to the top, and then we're going to click on T. And right up here, I'm going to click and drag a selection area. We don't have to have a selection area. We can just click on the T or press the letter T and click here. Fun in the sun. And let's just do that. Now then we'll do that again. Fun in the sand. And if we want to know if stuff is online, we can just click up here with the move tool and drag down a guide. See, this is on top of the line. That one is not. So we can click like that and line them up completely. You can also drag a guide in from the side if you want to make sure things are even. Just click back up there to make the guide go away, or you can do a view and uncheck the extras and that goes away. I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to get rid of this layer here, and let's go back to text. I want to put in the sun. That didn't work, did it? The sun and the sands of. And we're going to put that right up here. Click on this, or you can click the commit check mark up here to make the text permanent. I'm using Arial. You can use any font you want. Control T to make this bigger. And I don't really like to get things right there at the very, very top. Apply. And I'm just going to move that down a little bit. And then down here, I'm at the bottom, I'm going to type in Florida. And I'm going to make that much larger. And I'm going to make it bold. And hit the commit. And I'm going to Control T, Command T on a Mac to make this even bigger. All right, we have some text in place, but it's boring, right? So what I'm going to do, the text is basically a placeholder for me, and you're going to see what I mean. Right here is the gradient tool. If you press that, or click that, or press the letter G, then you'll get this gradient editor. And we'll just click right on that gradient editor, and you can select any color combination on here that you want. I right now have lots of little colors, and if you don't have all of these up, you can click up here at this little gear and load all of these different gradients into your gradient tool. Okay, I'm going to go with the one that I have right now. Again, you can click any one of these you want. This looks like a good one here too. That one's a pretty good one. Click OK. Now what I'm going to do is Florida here. I'm going to hold down my Control key, Command key on a Mac, and click right on this T. Notice that loaded this up as a selection. Alright, so I need a new layer. I'm going to click on the new layer icon right here, and I'm going to type in Florida text. Click here, and now what I'm going to do is hold down my Shift key, click and drag, and let go. And there's a gradient inside that text. Now I can throw the actual text in the trash can. Don't need that anymore. Same thing with the sun and the sands of. Just hold down the control key and click, not shift click, control or command click. Selecting the sun and the sands, we need a new layer. And we're going to take our gradient, hold down the shift key, click and drag, and now you see what's going on there. Control D. I'm going to throw this text away. Not sure what that text was supposed to be. I'm going to throw that away. All right, now some problems. The sun and the sands of and Florida don't really stand out all that well. So here's what we're going to do. We need the special effects again. So I click that. I'm going to run that up so you can see it. Click the special effects. We need a drop shadow. We're on the wrong layer. Let's go up here. This will be this text on top. Click the FX. Put a drop shadow on. We don't want anything near that big, so run that slider all the way back, this slider down, and then right over here we want to click stroke. Now that's too much of a stroke, so just click right on the word stroke and go up here and put in 3. Click OK. Now guess what? We can right click on that FX and go to copy layer style. Now we're going to go find that other text where the Florida is, right here, right click, paste layer style. And now Florida also has the stroke. Now, I don't like the drop shadow as much there, so I'm going to double click right there. I'm going to turn off the use global light, and I'm going to make this one bigger because it's a bigger word. We need a little bit more separation. Click OK. So now I think you're starting to see all the things that you can build, hopefully you can build in Photoshop. Let's move this back over here. All those layers in here have helped us build this particular image. And we're able to also make our cancel stamp because of the tools inside of Photoshop. If we still don't think that maybe the sky is working for us the way we wanted, remember we had that sky over here on its own layer. Here it is. And right above it was the adjustment layer that changed the color. Well, we can still double click that and bring this up. It's not a permanent change. We can change it whenever we want until we turn it into a JPEG or something like that and we don't save the layers. We can really lighten that sky up. We can saturate it. We can change the color all together. There's a whole gambit of things that we can go to. And then we say, okay, I like that, but you come back later and say, well, let's lower the opacity of that maybe. Or maybe we just need to go back in there and change it completely. You can have tons of fun in Photoshop experimenting with colors and the different ideas that you've seen in this Chapter 4 video. There's one little thing I want to do to finish this whole thing up. Just like we put the white border around our snapshots, let's put a white border around our entire image. So let's go up to the elliptical, or actually the rectangular marquee tool, and we can just select the entire image and then hold down the Alt key or Option key on a Macintosh, and we do the same thing we did on our snapshot images. Let go right there, and I'm just going to hold down my Control Command on a Macintosh and hit my backspace and fills with the white. Control D to turn that off, And there's my new border around the entire image. Hopefully that gives you some ideas, things to work on, things to do. Talk to you all later. Have a great time in Photoshop.